Morning. Welcome, everybody. Episode, I don't even know what, of Red Morning. The greatest red-pilled morning show outside of The View. All right. Got to do a quick adjustment here. Welcome to anybody who's listening or watching these on the various podcast platforms we're now available on. That's Spotify, iTunes, Anchor.fm. God knows how many other ones are out there. I can't keep track of them, but that's fine. I appreciate you taking the effort to listen to me run my mouth about the sexual marketplace and general male psychological health while you're doing squats and deadlifts at the gym. So I appreciate it. As always, this is Ryan. Welcome. I see a bunch of new subscribers to the channel this month. So good to see you guys. How's everybody doing in the chat? Who do we got? Jack, he's here. Of course he's here. Hey, I see we got you coming with us. So Red Morning is going to be, or Rule Zero, sorry, is going to be on after this at 11:30. So if you guys haven't yet, subscribe to that one. I believe this week we're on Rolo's channel, and we're coming off at the tail end of a great talk he had with Tate Boy. I don't know if it's worth talking about now, but there's so much to unpack from it. It's just so wonderful. I gotta admit, I can't not like the guy. Some quick hellos too to the guys checking this out live. Jack Napier, JD, Leonot Christian. Hey again. Got Dimitri, longtime listener, and Razul Snitzel. Sup, brah? For those of you who actually managed to have a nice quiet Friday evening, there was Red Evening with Jack Napier, where he was talking about his take on the sexual marketplace, a nice little evening show. It's also going to be him with, like I already said, oh, never mind. I'm already going into the stuff, but let's get to the topic at hand. So, actually, you know what? Before that, there's one more thing I wanted to go over. It's pretty cool. We've actually gotten big enough now, and this is totally thanks to you guys and especially the dudes on Patreon, that there's a bunch of other personalities that are looking to have their 15 minutes of a time with the show. So it's going to be great. We're going to start talking with some more interesting people. I've been hopefully getting at least one or two guys that got the PhD letters on the other side of their name talking about their respective fields, and so much more coming down the line. Anyway. Oh, hey, Tom Bombadil. There you are, man. He's another one. Long-time listener. If you guys don't know, it's a nice little Lord of the Rings reference. And it's going to be, November is going to be a great month for the show. I think it's going to be super. Plus, on a personal note, Remembrance Day is coming up on the 11th. For those of you who aren't in Canada who don't know, that is our day of military reverence based on the soldiers of World War I, and it's kind of been expanded beyond that. You may have caught me on Twitter this week having a bit of a tiff because I guess a lot of people are mad that they don't get to have multicolored poppies and black poppies and all these different kind of poppies, because apparently just being Canadian and respecting our veterans wasn't enough. No, we have to make it into everybody's pet project. So a little miffed on that one, but it's the same as me staring at the CN Tower when they're using the pride colors during Canada Day, and I'm just sitting here like, guys, give me a day. Give me a day. And then always Conk in the chat. It's good to see you too, Conk. But enough of this, that, and the other thing. Straight to the topic now. Conditional versus hypothetical imperatives. I chose this one because I think a lot of people would do themselves well to see more about what I'm talking about here. So for those who don't know, and I'm going to grade 8 reading level this because that's how I understand it. The difference between a hypothetical and a conditional imperative, and what does that mean to you, a guy who wants to get laid, a guy who wants to thrive in his relationship, a guy who wants to spin plates, or just the general guy who's got his life 90% on lock and is curious what the hell I would think that would be a useful topic to talk about. So hypothetical comparative is an if. Let's think of pickup. If you want to have a better sex life, then do this, that, and the other thing. Learn game, get better, physically attractive, dress nicer, learn to be charismatic, etc., etc. Those things only matter as values if you buy into the end goal. And that's why it's condition, or Yeah, hypothetical. If X, then Y for you programmers out there. And that's generally the mindset that the red pill has taken, or at least it's evolved into, which makes sense because you can't really have guys swapping notes, make your space fairly immoral or amoral, and not expect it to focus on ifs. I mean, if you're not the guy who wants to have 8 plates spinning at all times in his 40s, then obviously that side of things is not going to appeal to you. If you're not the kind of guy who wants a family and kids, then the married red pill side or the long-term relationship side of things probably doesn't appeal to you. And it's one of the nicer things I see because it means that we're not going to be locked into a dogma or an ideology. And if anybody's been paying attention in the world today, that's clearly not working out well for people. Sheep are in search of a shepherd constantly all the time, and it's not helpful at all. So giving people the individual, well, not giving them, but creating a space that has the effect of the individual freedoms manifesting in a certain beneficial strategy, I think is a good thing. It forces people to think for themselves. It's how to think, not what to think. Right now, we're going into, if you guys don't know, it's a bulletproof coffee I'm having for breakfast this morning. If you haven't done it, if you're on any type of cut, it's the most wonderful thing ever. Super simple to make. All you do is you take your morning coffee, add about a tablespoon of butter to it, which should be 90 calories, give or take. Emulsify it in a blender for about 10 seconds, and then drink. If you want to, what I usually do is I'll add a pump of a sugar-free hazelnut, and it basically makes it like drinking candy. 100-calorie meal, and the benefits are awesome. I may be missing some, so if you guys are familiar with the concept of bulletproof coffee, please chime in there. The idea is the fat molecules of the butter surround the caffeine molecules in the coffee. Not molecules, but whatever. Grade 8 science level. That's how I understand it. And what it does is it forces, it's like a slow digest mechanism. So then coffee, instead of being a quick jittery high and then a crash, it ends up being a more sustained, slow building caffeine high over time, as well as the fat ends up satiating you with your appetite suppressant. And so it's a really great way if you're over on calories for the day. And I had a bottle of wine with the old lady last night, so definitely over on calories this morning. Yes, and Conk has a good point in the chat. Coconut oil is good too. Yes, I've used coconut oil. I like. If you don't like the extra coconut flavor with it, it's also good. Butter is also good. And a lot of people have a hard time getting over that they're drinking butter, but obviously there's just a little bit of butter, and the taste is easy. If you've ever had coffee with milk, it's the same thing, only it's missing that lactose sweetness. So you get all the creaminess of butter, of milk in your coffee, minus that lactose discomfort that most people have. Another guy in the chat, Quentin, is talking about adding ghee butter. That's like an Indian type of butter. Never tried it, but I am kind of curious. I can see that working. When my time in the Middle East, I also was a huge fan of putting various herbs into the coffee as well, like cardamom pods and what's the licorice tasting one? But either way, so yeah, the Middle East, they love that. You just grind a couple of those pods in with your morning coffee. It gives that nice lemony zest to your morning coffee as well. But by the way, awesome to see. If you're listening to this one on the podcast, the chat is just full of guys who are going through their morning cutting diets, their health routines, stuff like that. You can't help but put a couple red pill guys into a space and have them swap notes about how to improve on the things that they want to do. And these are all ifs. If you're on a cut, obviously these things are going to matter. If you're not on a cut, then you're probably not going to like it. Yeah, cardamom pods. It's a Middle Eastern thing. They'll have a subtle lemony taste to it. But there's at the end of but then back to the topic here. This is all hypothetical. Star anise, that could be a kind of a neat one too. That would be kind of a licoricey scent to it. Chest Rockwell, Corey, always good to see him in the chat. He's one of the married red pill vets. He's been around easily as long as I have. Very switched on. The only difference is I was stupid enough to show my face, and he rather would keep his day job than deal with all you schlubs. So that's hypothetical imperatives. If then do this. Conditional one, and this is the dangerous one. And this is why you hear, and if you're just a normal guy doing your normal things, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about. And good for you. You're a better man than me on this one. But for those who are in this space and pay attention to the various personalities and the anti-personalities, you're going to see a lot of people refer to this as an ideology, because everything has to be an ideology. This was, I think, one of my big disagreements with ADJ before he went full retard was his fight feminism crap. I don't like the ideology part of it. You can't fight an ideology except for when you're another ideology. That's never been a red pill thing. So ideology is essentially a condition or a categorical imperative. Did I say conditional earlier? I meant categorical. So that's just a category. And you're going to see Christianity, traditional conservatives, liberalism, feminism, although feminism is kind of a tactic, but it shrouds itself as ideology. So it's kind of neat in that way, but we can get to that later, even though that doesn't help us get laid. Categorical ones just say, this is how things should be. And it's the big reason why you'll see a lot of conservative personalities on any type of social media, essentially just complaining about how the evil liberal goblins are destroying the family unit, and they play this victim narrative. That's because of their ideology and their ideological framework that they look at things on. So what should you do? And this is where you get that men should do this, men should do that. I don't know about you, but men shouldn't do anything. Yeah, back in the old days, men used to do this, so you should do that. I'm like, yeah, well, back in the old days, leeching was popular, and heavy drinking was the norm. So yeah, if you didn't want to starve to death, you had to go hunt animals. So real men hunt. No, real men didn't starve. Nowadays, you can go to the grocery store. So unless you want to hunt as a hobby, I wouldn't waste your time with it. It's not going to make you more of a man. And this is a personal story as to why I never liked the categorical imperatives. If you guys haven't heard, I don't talk about my own history a lot unless it's applicable to the story. So I think it is here. And I remember there was a phase during my red pilling where everybody was all about what makes a man. What do I do to become a better man? They essentially built themselves a narcissistic fantasy. So build yourself an archetype, make it up, and then do what you can to fit within it. If it was healthy narcissism, guys would actually put in the work to achieve it. If it was unhealthy, they would just declare themselves president of the manosphere and lash out at anybody who didn't acknowledge the story. So then I actually did give it some thought. I'm like, okay, so what makes you a man? A lot of guys think, and this is where I kind of have my little flippant bacon-scented beard oil comment, because it's what you consume is what makes you a man. Men love leather. Men love beer. Men don't like wine, yada, yada, yada. So I'm like, oh, that's great. So basically by eating or putting bacon-scented beard oil on my face, that makes me a man, or buying a Chevy truck. It doesn't work so much that way. It's just all symbols. And the problem is, well, not a problem, but the problem with the person who does this is once people don't acknowledge your symbols as masculine, you really have nowhere else to go but a narcissistic rage, because it's an injury. You buy a big Chevy truck and then somebody makes fun of you for having overcompensating for a small penis. It's obviously attacking that same fantasy that you had. No, I'm a real man. And they're like, no, you're not. So that's the problem there. So when these categorical ones come in, they aren't genuine. So back to my story from my time. I had 12 years in the military, raised on a ranch, third generation farmer should be, and Baptist minister. So like all those things that you think of as masculine, I've done all of them, and it didn't make me any more of a man. To be honest, I actually found more self-assuredness from pickup than I did from any of that crap. So, and then you kind of get into, so what's the point of these symbols? Well, it's the military. And I go, okay. So I remember Remembrance Day, it would have been a few years back. I got back from deployment. I was all psyched about it. And one of the traditions is you go to one of the Royal Canadian Legions, drink with a couple of vets, and you swap some stories. That was pretty cool. And I remember talking to this one, and I can't remember his name. He was a Korean War vet. And he was all excited. He goes, oh, you just got back from deployment. I see you got the SWASM. I'm like, yeah. So how was your deployment? And I kind of started talking about it. And yeah, we did this and we did that. And it was an amazing time. And he goes, oh, that's awesome. He was actually really excited. He's like, that's great. I miss my deployment days. I'm like, so what did you do? And this is the part that kind of deflated me. He's like, yeah, they dropped me off in Korea. And then they told me to blow up anything that had an engine on it and find my way back in 3 months. I was like, holy shit. But that's the thing. We always think about, join the military, it'll make you into a man, or like combat, or the guys that just wear duck hunting gear and put some modifications on their AR rifle that makes you a man. But he didn't do that to go be made a man. The country needed him to do it. So they just said, here, go do this. And when you come back, if you're alive, we'll give you a pension. So it wasn't that he made himself a man. It wasn't a rite of passage. It's just that society had a use for him in this very physically demanding position. And so once he fulfilled it, he came back and he had some self-assuredness from it. So that's great. So then I realized, society they had all these categorical imperatives. Like, yeah, by doing your service for queen and country, you'll become a man. But it wasn't a self-actualization journey. It's just people needed you for a purpose. And so they told you what you needed to hear to get there. That's not to say it's not useful. Obviously, anybody here who spent any time in the military or any kind of physically demanding thing, manual labor, farm work, ranching, worked in a cement plant, logging, all that stuff, you're going to come back and you're going to have a lot of esteem from the success that you've achieved in those things. But it's because you're trying to solve a goal. It's nothing that it intrinsically makes you any more worthwhile than anybody else. And it's like Chesty's saying here, dancing is upright foreplay, always masculine. But that's just it. So what are the things you can do today that men should do? There's not really any answer to it. I mean, you can almost do nothing at all. I'm essentially making a career out of running my mouth on the internet, drinking coffee. And if that can actually be something that could sustain you so you don't starve, like what hardships do you really have to enforce yourself? And it's only the ones you pick. And so what are guys picking? They're picking manufactured hardship, like cold showers and stuff. And that's the problem with categorical imperatives, is that you end up doing all these weird kind of ritualistic dances that make no difference. Ooh. Quick break there. Chesty brought up a good point. Unsalted butter too. Read the labels. See, that's funny. I always use salted butter because that's the one I'm with. And I know salt actually makes bad coffee into tolerable coffee, but it doesn't make good coffee into great coffee. I haven't tried the unsalted butter, but I'm gonna have to give that a try and see what the difference is. Yeah, and Conk has a great follow-up on this one too. The only blanket statements, they have to be pretty vague, like having an exercise routine. You could be a lifting bro, but as long as you're doing something, I think it's good. Yeah, so with these categorical things, you're really just picking then. And if anybody's just picking and choosing what they want to do to make them a man, that's why you'll end up with a very incongruent or inauthentic type of masculinity, because it's the same as the guys who say they're Christians and they have a Bible, but they only follow the half of it that makes sense. You see Dalrock talk about that constantly, where these guys call themselves Christians, but they let their wife run the household. When if you read the Bible, it's like the man will be in charge, patriarchs, blah, blah, blah. Not saying I disagree with it, not saying I agree with it. It's not really the point here. The point is, if you're going to do the categorical imperatives, you can't half-ass it. And the problem is nobody can really full-ass it, which is kind of the problem. Another problem with ideologies or categorical imperatives. It's that you're never going to be able to fit the mold. It's always about this aspiration that you're never going to meet. And so it has an extra element in it of guilt, Catholic guilt. If you guys have ever dated a Catholic girl, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So you're never good enough. And so you always have to get some kind of absolution from something. And we saw it creeping in early on with the married red pill, where a lot of guys would come in and they would talk about all the things they've screwed up. And all they wanted to do was have you call them a, well, I can't really, it's a homophobic slur, but you know the one. Just sit there and call you a bundle of sticks. Yeah, guys, I screwed up. I'm not leading my household. My wife doesn't find me attractive. I let myself go. So call me a bundle of sticks so I can have my Catholic absolution. I'm like, dude, this is not a confessional. Another problem with the categorical imperatives is that people end up not wanting to succeed. They just want to be forgiven for their sins. And I can't stand that crap. It's such a self-defeating prophecy. So these are points, and I don't think we're going to get into it on Rule 0. We talk about what would be a better way of life, like modern relationship stuff here. But Having said that, thank you so much, guys. I'm absolutely fascinated by you delving into the intricacies of Bulletproof coffee and what you do. The guy who's talking about the line of Coke, probably not my cup of tea, but whatever. I mean, if it works, right? So back to this. Just remember, anytime somebody talks to you about red pill being an ideology, about feminism being an ideology, just know that they want it to be, because the only thing an ideology can do is fight another ideology. That's why we never really mesh well in purple pill debate against the middle-aged soccer moms, the bloops, and any type of intersectional feminist, because they don't really care what's true. They don't care what's useful. They just care what's moral, because from an ideological framework, there's good and there's bad, and you're just categorizing everything like botanists. And then once you think something's bad, then you can dismiss it. Oh, well, he's a misogynist. That's why misogyny is such a useful term for a feminist, because that just says part of the outgroup, he's one of the evil ones, and he can be gone. And that's how you're never going to defeat feminism, because it's not something you can battle. You're battling somebody's viewpoints. It kind of reminds me of the 2000s. If anybody here is old enough to remember that big atheism push. Four horsemen constantly sitting there berating fundies for talking about bananas and Christopher Hitchens arguments. I used to love all that stuff. It was nice to see somebody kind of flex their intellectual muscles. But then I kind of understood after a while, it's like nobody's being convinced. So it's really just there for entertainment. And that's fine if you like being entertained. I liked it. And that's why I think Hitchens was probably the best one out of the group, because he was the only one who understood that. So he kind of added wit to it. If you're going to be entertainment, you might as well be entertaining, right? And then Atheism Plus came around, and all these guys. And here's the problem. Everybody was so good about being right and setting up their own categorical imperatives why atheism was a better thing. They had completely forgotten the utility of life. And that's where the Atheism Plus thing came in. Me Too accusations in elevators completely crushed the entire thing here. And that's where a lot of these same guys ended up coming to the manosphere right around the time that red pill was becoming a thing. And they liked it just because instead of dudes sitting here arguing with fundamentalists about, Christian scripture, they got to argue with feminists, ones who had, master's degrees in underwater basket weaving, and were able to string a sentence together. It was so much more fun. Also not useful. And that's why you get guys like Roosh. And I think to this day, Roosh kind of caught on to that, where he realized it was the entertainment blood sport. And he never really focused on his own mission, which is, and like I said, this is a guess on my part, but I think I'm right. And that's where you get his whole existential crisis now, where he realized he spent all this time fighting thoughterry and thinking things were better in the East, that he forgot to actually focus on his own mission. Again, had he focused on the hypotheticals, well, what do I want and how do I get it? He focused on the categoricals. Well, what is a good thing that people should do to get good outcomes? And it's a very tragic story. I don't wish him any ill will. I mean, he's kind of wished upon himself anyway. But I take from that the lesson that you gotta stay focused on what's in it for you. There's a certain I guess nobility in the selfishness that I think guys really should embrace. Ooh. I guess I got a quick request in the chat too for you guys. I haven't had a chance to watch the Rollo and Tate interview yet. So if you got any gems or timestamps or anything that I should check out, I'm going to have a couple minutes in between the podcast, and I'm really looking forward to getting caught up here. Fuck, you guys are still on the butter. That's awesome. I'm starting to think that my coffee is more valuable than my content. So we got your hypotheticals and you got your conditionals, and red pill's always been hypotheticals, and that's why you'll get, and there's a couple really good seminal posts. I don't know. I want to add links to this, but now there's going to be an audio only side of the podcast. It doesn't do a justice to the people who are listening to this one, but there was a post Whisper had on Purple Pill Debate. If you guys don't know what that is, Purple Pill Debate was a subreddit that a bunch of people created just for this purpose. Ooh. They wanted to sit there and do the arguing, same as, oh, they added the colors. That's awesome. They created debate just for the sake of it. Same as I've just been talking about with the atheists and how they eventually transitioned into red pill and love to argue with feminists. It's essentially created for that purpose. And it's a perfect example of what the hell I'm talking about. If you go in there with problems in your love life that you want to solve, you're going to leave there just angry and frustrated and probably cathartic. A quick pause on that. $20 super chat, Dan Avita. Thank you very much. Thank you for the words of wisdom. Hey, you know what? If you want to thank me for anything I do or say on here, just make your life a success and send a success story. Put it out there in the sphere, or even just email me privately. That's all I want to see here. As much as I want to join with the cult of me guys, who are like, I just want to be worshipped by men. I just want to see guys getting their act together. I want to be that lawyer who's like, yeah, I've kept 50 people out of jail. It's not how great a person he is, it's the great results he achieves. So Dan, like I said, you don't have to thank me. Just use what you need to use to get what you need, man. But thank you very much. Yes, and Purple Pill does exist. So let me pull it up here. He actually words it very well. And it's the part I love the most about this is it was so useful. There's a bit of a critique within the Red Pill subreddit where Rollo comes in there. For the most part, he just goes in there, puts his new article in, puts a new show in, but he doesn't really engage people as much because if you guys know, he has an open forum on his blog site itself, and that's where he does most of his engagement plus the YouTube stuff. So it's very difficult to be able to engage everybody on every single social media platform. And so they kind of get mad that he just comes in there, link drops and leaves. But he's been putting so much value over such a long period of time that he kind of gets that privilege. But which is too bad because there's a lot of guys, and due to him and me, we've kind of been talking a lot, and I kind of give some of these ideas that people who have read The Rational Male and adopted some of his stuff, a lot of people have expanded on it. And it's kind of neat because now we got a lot of their feedback is coming into his stuff and it's influencing his writing. And I would say for the better. This one guy, and I'll never not talk well enough about him. His name's Whisper. He's got kind of gets 2 girls right now in a long-term relationship with him. So it's him. He's kind of doing the polyamory thing. But here's why he talks about how a lot of this fight feminism, this ideology argument, why it's generally pointless. He talks about the red pill mindset, and it's not something that you have to have, but it's just the way it tends to manifest because of the way that red pill has been scoped. Male sexual strategy, positive male identity. That's it. So he says for a red pill person, they generally bring the following assumptions to a discussion, debate, or argument. They believe that there's one reality, and the truth is what accurately describes that reality. The better a statement describes it, the more true it is. That's factual. Excuse me. Factual absolution. Generally, the idea is whether something is good or bad is just a matter of opinion, and that all systems of morality are things society's invented to get a result, and it is therefore pointless to argue about whether something is evil or not, instead of about the effect it has. That's moral relativist. That's an easy one to describe. So you could say anything, and it's bad for some people, it's good for other people. So instead of thinking of it as like a good or bad, or evil or good, you just think, okay, what are the results this has? And it's the thing that's bugged me the most about politics is that nobody refers to, everybody is always avoiding the moral relativism. Anytime you make a law, it's going to benefit certain people or certain institutions and then be a detriment to others. Now, those are value judgments you can make, but nobody ever makes them. Anyways, and then they believe that the goal of a debate, a discussion, or an argument is to establish what the facts are and how this knowledge can be used to control the outcomes. So the argument is about what is true, or I like to say what is useful as opposed to what's true, because a lot of the time we may get the underlying reasoning for something wrong, but as long as it describes the phenomenon well enough, like good enough. Then for a red pill person, they generally believe that debates or arguments or discussions are a cooperative process between 2 or more people with the shared goal of achieving a more accurate picture of reality. You kind of notice this too. This is one of the times where, because Jordan Peterson's kind of sometimes red pilled, sometimes not. But it's one of those ones where he is, because he always treats a discussion or an argument or a debate as if it's two people talking, coming out of it better than when they started. It's a very noble thing. So the belief here, or the system here, is that debates occur between theories, not people. You're talking about ideas. You're not talking about people. If that sounds a lot like that old adage where men talk about things, women talk about people, then yeah, you'd be absolutely right. And so then the idea of the unwritten rule is questioning somebody's character is off limits because it's irrelevant. Oh, you're a degenerate, you're a loser. Okay, that's fine, but we're not talking about me. We're talking about the stuff. The problem is when you get into the blue pill discussion, it generally brings different assumptions to a table. And in this, I bring up everything. When you talk to, and I really hope that you have no idea who I'm talking about. If you do, you can laugh along. But when you see people like Legends of Men and his little pamphlet, or Pat Stedman, or Gay Lou Boyle, who's that other one? We just did the video on that psycho who loves everybody. Pinnacle of Man, I think it was. So they think that reality is subjective, and what's true is simply a matter of who you ask. Truth is just somebody's perspective. That's where you get that crap like my truth. A lot of feminists do that too, and it's pointless to argue about what's true because they're factual relativists. They think there's one set of moral laws which human beings have gradually discovered in a historical climb towards ethical perfection. It's a horrible mental model, by the way. And just about every client or consult I've had has had to get the idea out of somebody's head that man is a 0 to 100 spectrum, and you either get higher up it on a lower up it or lower below it. But this is moral absolutionists. And then they think the purpose of a discussion or a debate or an argument is to establish whose morality is better and what everybody should do. So they argue about what is right. You're going to notice a lot of fundamentalists do that. A lot of feminists do that. A lot of political people do that. That's why it's never about Trump's policies. It's just about Orange Man bad. So they think the debates are a competitive process between two people who have the goal to establish who's right and who's wrong by finding out who's morally superior to the other person. So to them, the debate occurs between people, not ideas. So questioning somebody's character is not only relevant, but that's the whole point. And he goes into more of it. Actually, you know what? I'll probably throw a link to it in the chat. So you guys, when you're bored, you can read it yourselves. So this is the problem. And this is why I'm probably never going to go into it other than for entertainment value. You're never going to see me have a debate with a lot of these guys. More often than not, I'll just block and move on because that's all they. And here's the thing. Everybody who always clamors for a debate or a discussion, they don't actually want to solve anything. They just want to prove themselves better. It's just status jockeying. So right there, they've already made the assumption that A, somebody is better. Like for Stedman arguing about how he wants to debate Rollo, he's right there admitting Rollo is better than me, and I want to establish that I'm morally superior to him so I can win all the moral hijinks that come with that. Bringing this back to ground level, this is why you don't argue with your wife. Don't argue with your wife. Don't argue with your girlfriend, especially don't argue with a plate. Because they're arguing, in this case, the blue pill and the red pill framework here really does reflect male versus female thinking and speaking. When you're in an argument with a woman, she's usually there to establish that things aren't her fault. She's a better person, and she treats it like a status game. Meanwhile, you as a guy assume that we're on the same team. Let's sort out a problem. And these arguments never go anywhere. And it usually ends up because you're not arguing on the same wavelength. You're trying to find out what's useful, what's true, or to resolve a conflict. She's just trying to establish status. And the problem with not fighting this on her turf is that if she wins, she considers herself higher status. Whether that's true or not is irrelevant, is that she considers it. The problem with her considering it is, as always, hypergamy. Girls are loyal to their best option. Best guy. Guys love variety. Girls are simple creatures. They'll settle for the best. And over a period of time, if you keep these arguments with your wife or your girlfriend, you keep thinking of hypothetical imperatives when they're doing categorical ones, you're eventually going to have enough displays of lower value that she's going to start looking at you thinking, I can do better than this. Yeah, thank you, uncle. You did a very good job. And why not to fight your wife? Yeah. So this is the underlying stuff behind it. I can't really get into the details with it on the videos, but yeah. So you're doing these arguments, and all you're doing is establishing that, like, just by starting the fight, you've already established that you two are equals. And like I said, women don't respect their equals. They respect their betters. I don't mean this in like an objective, better way, but in her mind, she has to look up to you to some extent. Doesn't matter why, but it has to happen. If you want to keep around. If you don't, then it doesn't matter. But if it doesn't matter, then why are you arguing anyway? So there's really no reason for it. And in this case, the guys like Pat Stedman and Gaylu Boyle are kind of like nice little surrogates for the women that you're going to be dating in your life. Pat, in this case, is the nagging harpy housewife. Glow is that thought at the bar who's an absolute shit-testing beast. And you just kind of like shrug it off. Whatever, it is what it is. So this is why categorical and hypothetical imperatives matter to you from a sexual marketplace standpoint. And another reason why, if you're ever on the subreddit, read the damn sidebar is probably one of the first rebuttals to any stupid question you have. Or why I'll always, at least on my Patreons, I always suggest, like, for further reading on this, go to this, go to this, go to this. Try it yourself is a wonderful thing for most of the attractive behaviors in that. But there's also a secondary part of Red Pill, which is the internal mindset shifting, the mental models. And all the action in the world isn't going to matter if you don't understand why you're doing things the way you're doing. Yeah, I can't get those ones. So Rambo. You'll probably hear that term bandied about a lot, especially within the Married Red Pill. I think I've been adding it as the descriptions to a lot of my videos because people get this one wrong. People think Rambo means you just go into a situation, both feet first, gung-ho, and you're more than happy to blow anything up as long as you're meeting your goal. That's not what Rambo is. In fact, that's essentially just Red Pill fully committed. What Rambo is doing something without any self-awareness as to why you're doing it. Like, what is the end goal here? And this is where you're going to see guys doing cold showers, knuckle push-ups, talking about self-improvement. But you ask them, okay, why did you do that? I don't know. Stedman told me. All right, well, that's great. So what are you trying to achieve? Well, I don't know. Just going to be a man. All right, then. So you're basically doing a bunch of things. You're doing these, what's the word for it? Ceremonial rituals, but without any end result. You're just trying to fit into an archetype. And this, again, all this stuff ties in together. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about unhealthy levels of narcissism. This is where you're building that fake archetype and then working to fit within it without doing actual effort to have others consider you the archetype. So you're doing cold push-ups in this, or cold showers, knuckle push-ups, bacon-scented beard oil. Not really achieving anything, but it feels really good. And I think that's the worst part about it, is that it feels good. I feel like a man. You know what a man does? A man lifts 3 plates. A man does this. A man does that. Yeah, but there's a reason. The reason you're lifting weights is because you want to become more aesthetic, be stronger, fitter, live longer, look more youthful. Like, you see what I mean? They're all towards a goal. It's not about the number of iron plates that you have on either side, the number of 45s you have. That's just a number. That's a means to an end. It's another reason why I really love Drew Bay's time under tension stuff he's been talking about. Since adopting it, by the way, it's been awesome. I actually haven't had to wear hooks on a workout, which, granted, because it's like less weight, but hey, and here, Matthew Sylvie, he's actually brought up a good point here, back to the Tate thing here. And here's a perfect example of why a hypothetical imperative is much better for a red pill man. The one part he liked from Tate's little interview is that even if you only want one woman, you still need to play the field in order to find a good one. It's true on multiple levels, or it's helpful on multiple levels. Pre-selection has been a display of higher value as long as I've known. Predates pickup. The women want him, guys want to be him. The idea that other people want something makes that thing intrinsically more valuable, and that includes people. So even if you only want one woman, if you want monogamy, maybe it's because, and it's something I talk about on Patreon, maybe you want to have an economic partner. Story was between me and a bunch of friends that when we were in the military, a lot of the wives that were motivated to do things, they liked it because they could take more professional risks. Mostly because, yeah, if I lose my job or if I get fired or this doesn't work out, there's always this very steady government paycheck coming in. So it gave them the motivation to make these kind of like jumps every couple years. And the ones that have done it, amazing salary increases. Like right now, I use my good buddy who I think is listening to this one now, actually. So what's up? What's up, Sea Dog? He and his wife earned more money than they know what to do with. And that's literally the benefit for him, was being in a relationship with a person. And that stability allowed her to take more professional risks, upped her thing. She got good enough that he was able to take more professional risks with the safety net. And so he's since left the military and moved on to bigger and better things. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. And it's the same thing with mine. Like, me starting this as a business would never have happened if my girl hadn't taken her professional risk because of my stability, and vice versa. So there's cases to be made for monogamy. I'm not saying marriage, I'm saying monogamy. Even if you want to do that, though, there is no way either one of us would have had the longevity in our relationships we had if no other woman wanted us. It's not even a surface level thing. It's not a girl looks at you going, oh, Stacy wants them, so I better try harder. It's not that. When a perfect stranger or somebody who just met you finds you attractive enough, that means you have the certain qualities that would make you attractive to women. Obviously, the one you're with is going to see that as attractive. And so the idea of being able to get more women is just that. You're always having an objective measure of quality on your part, of value add. Because if you're in a relationship, and you guys, anybody who's been in a new relationship already knows that as soon as people start getting comfortable, they start gaining weight, they start looking less attractive. And they buy into the cost sunk fallacy. Well, we've had 2 years together. So, yeah, he doesn't look as good as he used to, but it's still cool. But that's the problem, is that it's always like a rationalization as to why, just because things aren't as good as they used to be, they're probably still just as good. But they're not. They may be good enough, but they're never going to be as good. So you have to realize that part of it is you just have to be ready to burn your life to the ground and start over if need be. And just having that mentality in place is useful as a hypothetical. If you want to maintain a good relationship, you have to be able and willing, if need be, to nuke this one and move on and do your own thing. Perfect example of a hypothetical. A categorical imperative, on the other hand, would be you sitting here going, well, marriage is an institution for life, and I made a vow for life. Here's the problem with that, and I'm sure you guys already know where I'm going with this one. You get the guy who dates the ex-ho, starts cheating a bunch. Oh, I'm sorry, I sinned. It's so bad. All right, I forgive you, and I'll take you back. Meanwhile, his kid's walking around with water beating off his hair, if you get my drift on that one. Not a very helpful mental model, because he's treating it as the should. What do good people do? They treat marriages forever. So doesn't matter if she treats you like garbage, doesn't matter if she gains 500 pounds, doesn't matter if she absconds with your kids. You're treating this as a should. I should be monogamous for life with this person. Doesn't matter what happens, what I do. Once you put the ring on that, it's done. And people do all kinds of thoughterry when they're not held to that same categorical imperative you are. And women aren't. As much as there is so many good Christian women out there, I know just as many super good Christian women who are downright thoughtish. Even online, it's funny. It's been better now because, for the most part, the red-pilled women that are online, I don't engage with them. But before, it was always kind of nice, like, oh, red-pilled girl, nice to chat with you, nice this, that, and the other thing. And next thing you know, they're sliding into your DMs. And granted, it's probably a validation thing, but I bet you anything. And I think, what was the example? I had Iris and Oleander, this Michigan girl, total trad type. She goes to the shooting range with her husband. They want to have a baby, all that stuff. Meanwhile, she's sending me fucking racy photos on Twitter and Reddit. And I'm like, oh, for crying out loud. So it's really hard to get behind a categorical imperative when only half the parties are onto it. Girls have one categorical imperative. It's theirs. All right, let's go back on the chats here. The glory of plate spinning practically is nothing lost when you stop seeing a plate. No serious investments have been made. Yeah, JD's got a good point too. And that's why plate theory is such a good thing. You learn to accept loss. It's almost Taoist in a way. When you're spinning a lot of plates or you're dating multiple women at the same time without monogamy, if you lose one, it's not a big deal. Again, hypothetical imperative. If you want to have the ability not to become obsessed and infatuated with a girl that you probably shouldn't be, you need to date multiple girls. Categorical imperative is, my word is my bond. I date one girl at a time. You lose the one girl. What does the categorical guy do? He pines over her. How do I win her back? What do I do now that she says she can't stand me anymore? And this is where you get that stalker behavior. Again, categorical imperatives. Now we can argue whether it's the right or the wrong categorical imperative, but the funny thing is no matter what kind of categorical imperative you use, there's always going to be a story of somebody who's using it to screw up his life. So there really is no absolute objective moral truth, at least not as far as you would go for your own self-actualization, because it's always going to end up with you doing these ritual narcissistic fantasies and them never working out for you, unless you're lucky. Maybe you're super hot, tall, Chad-like, just got banned off of Twitter, and girls always act right because you're the pretty boy. That's great, but you're not going to be pretty forever. So you're going to either deal with this now in your 20s, or you're going to deal with it in your 50s when you're no longer attractive. So it's best to learn it early so you aren't end up realizing the last 50 years of your life was a lie. Here's a good one too. Hector brought up a good point in the chat. He suggests not arguing, but at the same time to manufacture drama. Here's the thing. The difference is you're taking a proactive control of it, and it's not an argument. Manufactured drama, if you guys don't know, here's another hypothetical imperative. If you want to keep interest in your relationship over time, you have to build strong emotions. Not positive, not negative. I mean, it will be both, but it doesn't have to be one. Just strong. The problem with positive emotions is that it's very easy to become tolerant of them. If you buy flowers every Tuesday, or actually, you know what? The better thing is the rule is anything you do more than 3 times is no longer a favor or a treat. It's an obligation. So positive things mute after time. They just do. Doesn't matter what you do. If you do it enough, it no longer becomes a positive thing. It's just a thing. So you can't do positive emotions. So you naturally have to add some negative emotions to give some context to the positive ones. We can do that crap about there's no shade without sunshine or whatever bullshit. What doesn't really matter. Manufactured outrage is a way to capitalize on this phenomenon while at the same time not getting embroiled in arguments. So that's the one thing here that Hector may not understand is that you're not arguing with manufactured drama. You're actually doing it instead of arguing. Good example of that one is you're picking a fight. You're not arguing. You're not trying to find an argument to a point. All you're doing is trying to get her irritated at something. Now, if you're a guy, it's very easy to know what you can do to be temporarily unattractive, I guess. Maybe you're just yelling at her. Maybe you're saying that something she wears looks stupid. Maybe you're even, heaven forbid, you insult something about her, anything. And I don't want to tell you what it is to do here because it has to be something to get an emotional reaction out of your girl. You know your girl better than me. You're knowing the girl that you're talking to better than me. So you know what her buttons are. And you just push it. You don't push it a lot. You just push it a little. And then naturally she'll want to argue back, especially if it establishes that she's not a good person. You can go back and forth on this as much as you want. I don't know how much, and this is where a calibration thing comes in. You have to know, for some girls, a little goes a long way. For some girls, you have to basically come to Ike and Tina Turner in order to get things. It's actually a perfect example as to why I don't want to be a pimp, and I don't think you guys do either. Because pimps essentially have to use like the backhanded justice to keep their girls in line, and they need that extreme level of manufactured outrage or manufactured drama to get that high. I don't want to deal with that. Another good purpose of manufactured drama is it lets you know how much of a emotional roller coaster you need to be on with this girl. Yeah, Conk has it perfectly. It hedges against boredom. I want to say it's the book Sex God Method, but I can never remember. They talk about Devi, which is the 4 pillars of a very good sexual relationship over the long term. So manufactured outrage is a technique used there. So if hypothetical imperative, if you want to establish emotional highs and lows in order to have a more engaging and fulfilling sex life over the long term, then manufacture drama. And here's the thing. As you get better at it, you'll bring it up and you'll bring it down. You mess with her, maybe 10 minutes. She gets to the point where she's super irritated, and then you kind of laugh it off and bring that energy back down. There's an actual use of energy, the emotional engagement. Energy. I don't think that's the way the energy types mean it, but you get what I'm saying here. This one works because I've seen, here's another categorical imperative that's very bad, where a lot of guys talk about you be the stoic, perfect man, and the girl will love you forever. And the problem is it's boring. Anybody here who's been around for any length of time will know that there's certain type of guys who have their girls cheat on them right when life is perfect. They just paid off the house, or empty nesters. They finally get their lives together. Everything is absolutely the best. But because there's been no downs, girls get bored. And I think boredom destroys marriages or relationships almost as much, if not more, than lack of value. Sometimes a girl is so bored, she just needs to feel something. And that's the problem, is because girls' nights out are often that case. If your girl's taking a lot of girls' nights out, chances are you're not creating those emotional needs. Now, you want to talk about leadership? There's the leadership for you. It's not leadership because real men lead. You're leading here because you want to keep a stable economic unit within the household. Another hypothetical imperative. Yeah, the better the story, the longer the stay. That's a good one. Anyways, I'm going to go back to the chat here. Why don't you guys talk to me for a bit? I've been talking to you for God knows how many episodes now, for like a year. Then there's look at, first thing I see is JD. Dates traditional Catholic. Wonders why she sucks like a vacuum cleaner. Yeah, there's a few guys in the Married Red Pill who I'm going to use the term dating here because we're going to keep this family friendly. Mormon chicks, Muslim chicks, and Catholic chicks. The anything but type girls, or that moral absolution thing that they do, it's always good for a laugh. And if you want to learn about the true nature of women, I would say getting cheated on isn't the best way. I'm saying being the guy that she cheats on will probably teach you more than just about anything. Don't go out looking for it. But I mean, if you get out there and get any amount of numbers underneath you, at least one of those girls is going to be one that was bored with her husband or bored with her fiance and decided to see what else is out there. Good morning, man. Good morning, Veng Message 54. I guess we're gonna shift gears now. It's been about an hour, and I like to think that we've caught on to what hypothetical and categorical imperatives are, and how they assist or hurt you in your search for self-actualization within the sexual marketplace and outside of it. We're just gonna have some banter here. Bayberg has a great one. Any advice on winter-themed shirts? I guess there's a couple ways to answer this one. I mean, I won't do the Tanner thing about your style and blah, blah, blah. I find it's nice to have a color palette for every season. Obviously, you want bright colors for the summer and the spring. The fall, you probably work with more saturated and muted colors, same as with winter. I mean, you can go super bright if you want to, so these aren't really hard and fast rules. All right, quick stop here. Veno message, your fitness channel. I guess try not to spam it. I don't really, and actually, you know what? No, let me send it to me in a DM. I'd kind of like to see your fitness channel first. I don't want to have messages and links to stuff in here, because at least unless I can vouch for it myself, I really do want to treat the trust of these guys watching here as sacrosanct. So I'm sure it's good. Like I said, we'll talk offline, and if it's the kind of thing that I can vouch for, then feel free to spam away. Oh yeah, back to clothing for the winter. The thing I love, and fall is my favorite season of the year, is because the fall and the winter are great for layering, and layering adds a depth to your outfits that you just can't get in the heat of the summer. Like even now, I like darker colors. You've got so many more accessories you can work with, and they're all going to be purposeful too. So if you're layering in the winter, it's because you don't want to wear just a giant coat and a t-shirt underneath. You're going to end up sweating your bag off as soon as you move from one environment to the other. So instead, you have a lighter coat, under layers, base layers, medium layers, scarves, toques, mittens, all that kind of stuff. So when you're doing shirts for the winter, the beauty of it is there's no real difference than the shirts you wear for the fall. It's just what you layer them under. So in this case, I can just take a polo shirt and wear this one out in the winter. Perfectly fine. It's got the darker saturated colors, which work well in winter. It's still thin enough that it can breathe. I think this one's a wool. But then you can start layering on stuff. So this thing, maybe I'll wear a scarf with it. Maybe I'll wear an overcoat with it. Maybe I'll just wear a leather jacket if it's not super cold. That maybe I'll have a beanie on there, just like Rolo. But that's the beauty of it. And then you'll find that your outfits, instead of being specific to one season, they kind of carry over. So your fall stuff you wear in the winter, you just add more layers. The winter stuff you wear in the spring because the spring's awful crisp, but then you have your more colorful palette. The colorful palette of spring transitions over to the summer where you shed all the other stuff that you wore in the spring. And then dog days of summer, you switch into fall stuff. I kind of like that. Ooh. All right. On the chat here, I got another one from Dan Avita. He's got a good question here. Can you recommend any of your content or written material that goes deeper into reasons that she tests you or ways not to argue? For ways not to argue, that one is it's just the general theme you get. There's no specific thing that leads to it yet. It's probably something I should add to the list, but most of the stuff is content from the Married Red Pill for that kind of thing. For the red pill for single guys, it tends to just be next if she starts to get to be too much of a hassle, so it's not a good strategy for you. I can't think of any one particular author that'd be good with it other than Archwinger, but I mean, I recognize him for everything. The reasons that she tests you, I would delve more into the Evo Psych side of things. Anything written by Cindy Minston, David Buss, those are really good for understanding the reasons for argument. Dave Franco is another good one, The Practical Female Psychology. They're not specifically focused on the reasons that girls do the argument, but they bring up enough examples that you're able to make some conclusions on your own, which should be useful for you. There, finally finished the coffee. It's been like an hour. Oh, excuse me. I wonder if Rolo's even up yet. I saw the newest one too, where they're calling him a Nazi. That's. I actually kind of miss the days when it was just feminists in this space arguing about how bad red pilled people were, because the new crop of people we got are the most unattractive people doing the same stupid arguments, and it just doesn't have the same oomph to it. Don't be .soy. Yeah, that was the one thing I really miss. And here's the thing. I've been told that I got to take those rants offline if this channel gets much bigger. Once I start getting, I guess once you get to 100,000 subscribers, they give you an agent on their end that's helping you deal with your channel and how to grow it properly. So once that's gone, that's got to go private and straight to the Patreon community. So get them in while you can, guys. Oh, wait, I see what you guys are talking about. That's this guy in here, Bayberg, actually got don'tbe.soy as a domain. That's actually going to be hilarious. Also, thank you. I had a request out for the while there. I wanted to see, just for my own personal curiosity, the viewership of any Central Florida men-based conventions. And I got a photo of it. Pretty sad. It's kind of neat to see what being Rolo Tomasi means when it comes to revenue. So thank you for the hidden person who did that one there. It's always good for a laugh. And I guess we'll get on to some current topics here. If you guys don't know, another one of the masculine men of character, AJ Cortez, has been banned from Twitter. See a couple examples. It was something to do with him saying that he wants to murder pedos. I mean, who is there anybody who's pro pedo other than other pedos? Pretty much no. There's a lot of articles that do that, but they just do that because it really pisses off the squares. And they can rage, but as long as they're raging. But I was thinking about this one too. So everybody's talking about this, and it reminded me, again, back to the topic, categorical imperatives. Free speech is sacrosanct, and you should be able to talk about whatever you want. And these morally bad people, I'm better than them, so whatever I say is true, and they need to put up with it. It's that same thing where the rules don't seem to apply to everybody equally. And I'm sure you've seen that, where Twitter decides that one group of people can talk about certain things and another group of people can't without getting banned. And that's exactly what I'm talking about with that blue-pilled way of thinking, that moral absolutionism. AJ, his problem was he did the same thing. He's like, okay, so my group of people, my tribe, my mentality is that I'm morally superior, so I can say anything about this group without it being true. You just got to understand the game. And this is going to matter, not just, excuse me, not just Twitter, but in the sexual marketplace in general. Girls are going to act like a damn hypocritical fool when they can get away with it. Yeah, don't make lists about women and threaten broken, sexually repugnant people. That's the thing. Everybody's on the same page with that. Anybody who diddles kids, probably not a good person. Nobody likes it. Everybody's against it. The only reason that you're going to go online and profess how you're going to do something and threaten them is just to signal to your tribe how good of a person you are. I think it's very kitsch and it's really not needed. We all agree. Let's move on. But when you're dealing with an opposing ideology, which for them, that's why you always get the conservative argument that they're the victims of the evil liberal whatever machine crap. I don't even care. But as a red pill person, you look at this and you know what? That's just the terrain. That's what you got to work within. So you already know, okay, what do I need to do here? I need to not make direct threats against people or groups of people, protected classes or otherwise. So yeah, unfortunately in this case, moral degenerate, criminal, whatever group you want to put these people under, they're considered a group. And if I'm part of the San Francisco elite and I decide that you're being bad to a certain group of people, I can ban you. So you know what? Maybe my opinion on Epstein doesn't really matter as far as my brand goes. Maybe it doesn't. If you guys want solidarity, good for you. But just realize then the price you pay is that all it takes is the right person to see the right thing at the right time, and you're going to get removed. Same thing as a relationship. You could be right. Your girl could have cheated on you. Your girl could have taken your money and spent it in Vegas. She could have taken the kids and absconded to Mexico. It doesn't matter. Generally, people will treat women better than they treat men. So even if you're right, you could still lose all of your friends in that divorce and they could take her side, even though she unilaterally destroyed your institution. But, and here's the difference between a categorical and a hypothetical. Now that you know that, what is it you do with the information to maximize your happiness or your fulfillment in the situation? In this case, you get ahead of the game. You set up the narratives. You build yourself a social circle outside of your wife so that if this kind of stuff does happen, you're insulated against the risk. It's great risk management. And the side benefit of that is by building a life outside of your woman, you're also keeping options open. You're doing that same thing, being attractive to as many people as possible, which then again ensures that you're more attractive within your own relationship. So by actually having your one foot out the door, by understanding these categorical imperatives are not imperatives at all, you're actually making it less likely that you have to use your hypothetical imperatives. It's mutually assured destruction. Whoever has more nukes is definitely not going to be bombed by the Russians. But nukes are bad. Yeah, I'm sure they are. But you know what? The country with one nuke is more likely to use it than the country with 10,000 nukes. And it's obviously the case. Yeah, Chesty has a good point. What did you do to make her act that way? Right there, that shows you that people have a very fluid sense of right and wrong. And it's always about the perceptions. There is no absolute truth. She didn't cheat on you. No, it's what did you do to make her have to cheat? removes women's agency when it suits them, adds women's agency when it suits them. She left you because she has agency. She cheated on you because she doesn't have agency. So it's very contradictory. So the categorical imperatives make no sense. They used to. This stuff worked great if you were in like the 1600s and if you got divorced, the girl was basically thrown into a convent and booted from the family and nobody in the town would talk to her. That's great. We don't have that now though. So these categorical imperatives only really worked when there was giant social forces working to keep them in place. And it did that through punishment. Ivar, you joke. Who likes the pedos, royal family, Catholic Church, the deep state, CIA? Yeah, that's the thing. Like, why are you risking a ban from social media? And from what I know of AJ, that's his sole sales funnel starts with Twitter. He has Twitter, brings him to an email list. The email list brings him to his main sales page. So why he felt the need to profess something that clearly goes against the Twitter terms of service, even though it may be morally repugnant for him, is beyond me. That's a risk that I don't see the need to take. When shame resulted in real behavioral change. Yeah. I mean, having said that, I'm not shitting on the guy either. We've had meals together. We've had drinks together. We've hung out. Nice, normal, perfectly decent guy to talk to. Nothing wrong with the guy at all. This is strictly like a business conversation. Having said that, for a guy as cordial he was to Rolo, I'm really surprised he keeps telling Rolo to go fuck himself. But then Ivar, by the way, Ivar, one of the awesome Patreon guys here. You guys, I don't know if it's possible to follow him, but when he talks, just know he's switched on. He's going to share his bulletproof coffee recipe in high protein, anti-aging, pro-fertility. What are you, jizzing in the thing? Oh yeah, that reminds me. There's something I've been meaning to try. For a lot of you guys that work out, doing any kind of mass building and that, obviously you've had whey protein at some point in your life. And if you're like me, you probably have a hard time choking down another 5 pounds of super sweet pina colada, crappy flavor. It's something I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate into the cooking channels, how to use whey protein in ways that doesn't involve just making a shake that you have to choke back. So far, the experiments I've done in the past where I use a gelatin packet as well as making a very milk-heavy whey protein, make it into a pudding, the old school pudding with gelatin. And that one works not too bad. I can't quite figure out how to give it the consistency that Jell-O has, like the Jell-O pudding. Right now, it still has like Jell-O texture to it. So eventually, I'm going to get some nice things together. I also had a nice like a ranch dressing with a natural flavored whey protein. I kind of like that one. You can have it with chips. The thing about the whey, though, is if you guys don't know this, if you don't do any cooking with whey, it gives everything a very sticky, sweet consistency to it. It's hard to describe, but it's something that I don't think is really going to catch on for things. Like I said, I've tried it with guacamole. I've tried it with ranch dressing. It's not bad, but it's not ideal. There's something missing from it, and I wish I could put my finger on it. Protein balls with peanut butter. That actually reminds me, another thing I tried doing is making savory drinks. If you guys remember, this show used to be Carl and me having Caesars in the morning, getting drunk and talking smack. And I really hope we get back to that soon. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun December. Tomato juice or clamato with unflavored whey is actually pretty good too. It makes it like a thicker milkshake consistency, but it pairs good enough that I think you could probably make protein Caesars and actually have it work. Whey glaze. I can see that too. The only thing I want to be careful of is I don't want to use too much heat to denature the protein in the whey. So I'm trying to find either low heat or cold prep type things I can do with it. So I'll be doing some experiments on there. Right now, all I've got in the house is chocolate. I think it's Canadian mint, vanilla. I don't know. And some like fruit flavors there. So we'll see what happens. Not bad in yogurt. That is true, actually. Adding it to yogurt is a really good one. The natural flavors work really well because you almost don't even notice they're there until you add a lot. The one thing I haven't tested, though, is the sweeter, the fruitier flavors, if they work as well. Like, does strawberry whey protein work when you add it to yogurt. If you guys know that, you can try it out. Matthew's got a good one. He uses peanut butter, nuts, chocolate chips, and protein powder mixed together. Actually, I'm just thinking then, if I... Madeleine's probably wouldn't work. That's the problem, is I don't do a lot of baking, but I do French baking. And a lot of the stuff is pretty precise. So just dumping a bunch of whey in it is probably going to screw things up. Well, at the end of the day, just stick to meals. Like I said, I have about 4 kilograms of my chocolate pork in the fridge right now for whenever I want to eat. See how we're doing on time, Rel. I like you guys are giving me a lot of things to work with in the chat here. If you're just listening to this one right now, a lot of guys are giving their recipes that they do for the various way to infuse protein into their diet to keep their macros. Matthew's talking about peanut butter, nuts, chocolate chips, and protein powder mixed together. Ivar here mixes real whey, which I'm assuming means natural flavored, with kefir clear liquid. Something called a coquito. Jack's got it right. Eat steak. And yeah, if you have enough steak, feel free. But, there's a reason they call them supplements. Would love to see your take on seared tuna. Awesome, by the way. Seared tuna is awesome. I will never not vouch for it. It's too bad about the mercury thing. Tuna is one of those wonderful meats that the less you cook it, the better it gets. And so if you can get just enough sear on the outside to give that tinny fish flavor to it and keep the rest of it completely pink on the inside, it's absolutely delicious. I don't even like adding much more to it but pepper and salt. I wouldn't even go so far as to add any type of vinegar to it. At the most, maybe like an oil glazing. Steven also has a good point here where he adds oatmeal and protein together every day. Also a good one. Oh, if you guys don't know too, on the channel, I actually have my savory oatmeal recipe, which is a really good one. Just quickly summed up now, you take rolled oats, you quickly toast them in a pan with however much oil you want. Usually only need about a tablespoon, 90 extra calories to it. Or you can even do it as a dry roasting if you want to. Get them to the point where it's nutty. It's going to burn away all the starches on the outside of it. So instead of getting that creamy oatmeal texture, you almost get like a grain texture, kind of as if you made rice, but it's oatmeal. But then once you get it nicely toasted, you add your 2 parts water to your 1 part oats. I also supplement that then with a good glug of either Maggi or soy sauce to add the savoriness to it. And then you reduce it down until the whole thing is cooked through. And then afterwards, you top it with whatever toppings you want. In my case, I always add the chocolate pork that I have in my chocolate pork recipe. And then just some greens. So chop up some spring onions, add some parsley, cilantro, whatever you want to add to your heart's content. And if you want to be super fancy, I was talking briefly about creme fraiche. Always add a dollop of creme fraiche to it. It really enhances the flavor. It's absolutely wonderful. So look at this. You guys come here to hear about how to get laid. You leave with self-actualization and some kick-ass recipes. How's that for a value add? All right, I see we're at 157 people here. If I look at this channel, I really hope to see 157 likes. I have no idea if that works well or not, but everybody swears by the engagement metrics. So I say, let's do it. Is this the cooking channel? That's the beauty, Henry. I'll tell the story as to why I started this off with recipes. When I first decided to put my foot into YouTube and start creating videos on this content as a way to build some brand recognition so you guys can understand who I am, build people in from another channel, because at that point it was just Twitter and Reddit. I'm like, well, there's a whole bunch of people that don't use those that are on YouTube, and we could reach them as well. So I look, what are people that talk about Red Pill doing right now? And it drove me nuts because I saw the same really low quality content. And it's not to call anybody out on their content. Other people seem to like them. It's not my place to say it's objectively bad, but it was always the same thing. It was guys with the webcam sitting in their parents' basements or, sitting in their living room or in the den, Actually, I'll call out Coach Greg Adams because screw that guy. But it's just it. He's just sitting there, put a headset on, even though you're not listening to anybody, just to look the look, and then reading the Rational Male verbatim, talking about how bitches ain't shit. It was this weird, cathartic, or sitting in their Honda Civics with the GoPro, reading that while driving around in a parking lot. I'm like, how do you expect people to take what you're saying seriously if you don't take it seriously? You're doing these single takes, stammering your way through a concept. You're not putting any production quality into it. It's literally pablum. And it's all very, it was just like a way to vent your frustrations about how women are bad because hypergamy. Man. So I looked at this. I'm like, well, this is ridiculous. If I'm driving around in a parking lot, I don't want to sit there and have a talk with a guy. So I thought, let's apply some like very basic and rudimentary filmmaking techniques to this. How does somebody want to receive information? And as a guy, you generally would have a couple drinks with friends and you guys would shoot the shit amongst each other. This guy is so fake. So that's what people would do. Or a lot of things I used to do in my time too, is because like I said, I actually do enjoy cooking. My time in the military was always eating steamline stuff off the buffet table when we're sailing, and it was always horrible food. So when I got home, I'm like, I want to eat well. And women can't cook, so I better learn it. And so I learned how to cook well because I was tired of eating crap food and I was tired of girls reheating alphagetti. Not talking about my girl now. She's a good cook. Probably why I'm still with her. And a lot of guys would come over because, oh, I would love to eat something that's not crap. My girlfriend can't cook. And so we'd make some food and we'd chit chat together and shoot the shit. And I'm like, you know what? What an awesome concept. So if I make it a cooking channel, but I'm just making an omelet for breakfast because you're hungover after the bar and you crashed at my place, that's fine. And now we get to talk about hypergamy. And I'm like, that's a more natural way that guys talk about things. While you're busy doing something that you already need to do, and that's a general life skill that people need to be more attractive. Like a guy who can cook is automatically more attractive. If you have a girl over for a one-night stand, you give her breakfast before you throw her into an Uber, much less likely to get a Me Too accusation thrown at you. It's like, oh, were you so fearful of your life you sat there and had breakfast? Like, come on. So I'm like, all right, let's do that. And so I took the camera, and the camera is essentially the viewpoint of the viewer. And this is where I'm like, so how would you guys be doing this? Well, you'd be in the living room, sitting there watching TV or just chilling on the sofa, watching me make something while we talk about something. I'm like, that's perfect. So then I did it as a cooking channel, and it was Boundaries in the American Omelet or Dread Games and Madeleines. Madeleines are always awesome. I love pulling those out as a breakfast thing. Guys loving having that morning coffee with a couple Madeleines with them and that. So I'm like, yeah, this is great. So it's like we're just a bunch of buddies hung over after a night at the bar. You crashed on myself, or we're going to have some breakfast and then go to the gym afterwards. Awesome. So I started doing that, and I thought it was cool. And I'm like, oh, all right. Well, I'm going to run out of recipes soon enough. I only know how to make maybe like 100 things total. And I don't want to be one of those guys that starts making those obscure ingredients into fancy dishes that nobody's ever going to make. If you notice, every one of my recipes has to be very simple things that I'd probably make and eat myself. Oh yeah, I'm not getting close to Rich. Rich at least has a nice car when he does it. He's put in the work, so I'm not too threatened by that. And he doesn't drive around in the parking lot. He's actually driving 2 places. So I was thinking, well, there's the coffee one, because I'm always sitting here drinking a coffee. It's typical Navy guy, do nothing but drink coffee all day anyway. And like, how many times have I just gone and hung out at Starbucks with a buddy, had a coffee break at work? We used to have them. It's called Stand Easy. If you guys have ever been in the Navy, 10 o'clock is a Stand Easy. That's a 10-minute break where you always have a bowl of soup. I'm not sure where the tradition came from. It's just one of those things. After breakfast, before dinner. So I'm like, yeah, it's be like a Stand Easy. We'll have a coffee. We'll talk about this, that, and the other thing. The idea of that one, it was supposed to be more like topic based, where opposed to the cooking one was more strategy. And then since I've gone on to do other things there, but that's the whole reason that this is a cooking channel. It's not about the cooking. It's about how do normal guys interact. And I think that's a more important lesson. It was something that I tried to impart on guys back when I was still part of the 21 convention. 2017, 2018, great years for it, by the way. It's too bad it's gone downhill, but whatever, it is what it is. I blame Rollo Tomasi. He's a traitor. Jack, no, I didn't have to teach her. I'll get to that story in a sec. But that was the thing. So you could have one thing where you just get up on stage, you pitch whatever your product is, and then give an hour-long speech. And I noticed a lot of the old guard, like the purple pill life coach types, they would do that. It was basically them a sales pitch. They came, they talked, they left. The red pill guys, we're all new to this stuff. We're like, you know what? It's my chance to meet Ed Latmore. We talk all the time, but we never had a chance to meet, or Tanner or Hunter or whoever. And so we sat there and we just would shoot the shit, same as I did here. Instead of cooking, though, you're just having the bartender make you a drink, and guests would come up and start talking too. And we'd eventually have like this big conversation among like 15 of us. It was like having a bunch of sailors in the mess shooting the shit with each other. So it was more so than the topic. And the beauty of it about red pill isn't so much that you're talking about hypergamy and women and sex and blah, 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 because, we should be thinking about better things than sex. It's that you're giving guys examples of what healthy, highly attractive, valuable, top tier type men do with their day. They sit there and they talk with other valuable top tier men about things. And it's not about people. It was about stuff. We talk about workout programs. We talk about food. We talk about our own adventures within the red pill and how we got to where we are. Not so much as like a cathartic, my woman treated me bad thing, but it's crazy in 2 years that I've managed to accomplish this, this, and this. Oh yeah, well, I accomplished this, and it's cool. Because guys would leave with the experience of like, okay, so this is what's missing from my life. I have no friends, just office coworkers. We can't talk about real stuff. We can't have these great conversations. And they leave generally as better people. Because you'll find that, and talk to anybody who's done this themselves. They once they learn how to have good banter, normal banter with guys, they go back to their own social circles and they kind of bring that same competence and quality there. And it increases the quality of everybody else around them, because now you're resetting social norms to more healthy, masculine-based behaviors, the positive male identity. And so there's a traitor in our midst. Yeah, and that was the point of all this stuff. It's not just about telling you hypergamy bad, whammon bad, spin plates, but the second part of it is, well, here, yeah, feminism and your stupid divorced mom and dad really screwed up your childhood, but here's a much healthier way for you to live if these are the kind of things that interest you. And once you get into them, you start finding the usefulness of them is self-evident. Once you have banter with a man over a couple drinks, or you take like a vacation to Amsterdam with a good friend of yours on his retirement party, then you realize like, oh, this is awesome. I like this. Doesn't make me a man, but it's more fulfilling. And when I get home, it's not an unattractive trait that has detrimental effects. If you're just sitting there on a gamer live stream by yourself, getting drunk, eating Doritos, yeah, you get that same good feeling, but at the end of the day, you're making yourself less attractive over time. But to answer Jack's question, he was asking the downvotes for engagement as well. What a dick. Honda Accord masculinity. Oh, Chesty. Did I teach her how to cook? No. She is actually a Mexican national, and she learned to cook because she owned a restaurant when she was growing up. So she learned a lot of Mexican cooking. Her parents fed her a bunch of like red tide clams and that. So she became a vegan, not because she wanted to save the animals, just because the taste of meat makes her sick because parents poisoned her as a kid. So she always knew how to cook. And our first date kind of ended with that, actually. I remember, I don't know how the conversation swung to it, but it was something to the effect of, I know how to cook because I can't trust a woman to so much as make a sandwich nowadays. And then she took that as a challenge. Well, I can cook. And so our date, which was eventually just a couple of drinks, ended up her coming over to my place and making dinner. And she made chili rellenos, which is, if you haven't had it, it's an awesome dish. It's a stuffed poblano pepper with Mexican ingredients and a breading on the outside, along with this really specific tomato sauce. It's an awesome dish. And so that was the first date right there. So yeah, she knew how to cook. I brought different types of things to the table. And so since then, I've learned how to do much better Mexican cooking, and she's learned how to do much better Asian, Thai, general cooking. But I wouldn't have known that was value if I hadn't dated a lot of girls. I had to date and sleep with at least 13 girls before I realized that most girls are pretty useless when it comes to anything outside of sex and drinking buddies. Another reason why it's good to have multiple plates, because you really don't get a snapshot of what the current sexual marketplace is like. So you don't even have a way to rate what quality means in a girl and what quality doesn't mean. And these are values that matter to you. But if you don't know what you want, then you don't know what you're looking for. And then whatever woman comes by and gives you attention is the only metric you have for success. So you're taking what life gives you, and it's a horrible thing. But in my case, I mean, I dated the single moms, I dated the Navy girls, I dated, normal girls. I've had girls cheat on their fiancés with me, all that stuff. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just saying then I've got enough of a wealth of experience that I can kind of see what kind of girl is going to be what kind of relationship over the long term. And then right now I know my boundaries. If a girl starts going to the bar 3 nights a week, I already know what that means for me. I'm not interested in it. If I just want to sleep with a girl, I'm perfectly fine with that. So my boundaries change depending on what I'm looking for. I think Humanist Aggressor has actually nailed the point of doing this as a Saturday morning show. He loves listening to me while I'm hungover and trying to go out Saturday morning. And I think that's exactly what it should be. Nurse your hangover or get pumped up for your gym routine. If you're not doing either of those things while you're listening to me, then I think you're wasting your time. But if you are doing that, then, no fault. Not saying you're a bad person. Henry brings up a good point too. He's right. Most women don't know how to cook or too lazy to cook. And it's a deal breaker if I were to consider a woman for a long term. Here, that's a great point too, why these hypothetical imperatives like this, like if you want a long-term relationship, she has to bring more to the table than just sex. I remember when AJ, and you can't remember who he stole it from. Everybody's stolen everything from somebody. But when he did his list of traits to have as a valuable woman shit, a bunch of chicks get mad at him in the mentions. He drops an ad to his Instagram page. Everything works out just fine. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, there's 7 things in there that would piss off a kind of girl who is mad at the poor misogynist for having standards. Good job, Michelle. He's heading to the gym now. The gym bag routine in action. It's up to her to keep you around. So I'm like, out of all those 7 things, which are the ones that actually piss girls off? And so I tried it myself. I'm like, all right, so I'll do one-offs, 7 tweets, each of the 7 qualities. And they're all very generic, be valuable to the person you're with stuff. Dress nice, don't be fat, don't waste money, learn to cook. And it was weird, like don't cheat, all this stuff. All the stuff didn't really get much of a reaction. But then once I mentioned know how to cook, I don't even think I put cook for your man. I'm just saying know how to cook. And all of a sudden, the blue checks came out of the woodwork to tell me to go shove it up my ass. And I was like, holy crap, that's hilarious. How dare you suggest that I do anything for you? And it was funny because Rollo said the same thing, or his article on if you're suggesting that women do anything to please their man, it's like the equivalent of sacrilege to the feminist imperative kind of thing there, which is true. I couldn't believe the amount of pushback I got from these girls. And the funny thing is, the only reason that the pushback was there is because I wasn't the best man in their life. Online, you're never going to be. I guarantee you take that shortest haired, oldest, orneriest feminist who's really wants to settle down and finally find a man to make her feel good. If she feels that tingle, and I don't know what it would take, if she feels that tingle from a man, I guarantee you she'll have Lacey Green effect and she'll start learning how to cook. And she might screw it up. That's the problem. If you're 45 years old and you've never so much as made a sandwich before because you don't need no man. Yeah, when you're 46 and you find that great guy you want to impress, toasting toast and jam isn't going to cut it. And so you don't have those skills to keep a man. So then you have to ask yourself, outside of sex, what are you good for? Back to hypothetical imperatives. Well, I'm good conversation and very intellectual. It's like, yeah, well, I got really good friends that are smart and switched on. If I want to talk about this stuff, I got them. What do you bring to the table other than sex? You want to be my best friend? That only works if I don't have any friends. And if I'm the kind of guy who's going after a 45-year-old girl because I'm 55 or 65, then yeah, I've already got that sorted out in my life. Right now, I like having sex. And what else do you offer? And that's the value add thing. And cooking is the greatest example of it. Cooking and taking care of yourself. It shows that A, the person's value is that they're invested, and B, they're able to give you something other than sex. And so with that extra investment, it encourages you to be more invested, which is really what value adds and relationships are all about, adding more things. You hear people say that, well, relationships are just about children. That's it. I have a problem with that because that's that very child-centric view of relationships. And that's where you get that middle-aged soccer mom who says, but, well, I'm a mother, as to which whatever argument she's going to have after that, that's the only thing that matters. The problem with a girl that treats having kids as like the greatest thing in her life is that nothing else matters. And so, yeah, you maybe want a family and that's great. But if every member of your family treats you as the useless plow horse that did your job and now just sit there and provide for my little fantasy of having a surrogate ego to deal with, you're going to be pretty miserable. And the girl's going to be pretty miserable. She'll be so busy thinking about how great she is for being the mother that she may forget about that. But there'll be that time when you hit the empty nester, and that's where that girl hits that second epiphany phase that are in their 40s. The kids are teenagers, and they just want to go thought around. The problem is they're a frumpy soccer mom, and nobody wants to. Nice. I like Kevin Wells' workout here. Black coffee, a rowing machine, and 30 more push-ups than yesterday. And I know I make fun of push-ups. The one thing I do like about push-ups as part of a chest routine is because it has the scapula mobility. You'll never get that from a bench because from a bench, your back is mostly stable. And so there's those stabilizing muscles in your back, the scapula, the shoulder stuff that never really get worked. So if you only do bench press, for example, and you never do any of the stability stuff, you're going to injure yourself over the long term. So it's always good to add this kind of stuff there, a weighted push-up, or I guess even body weight stuff, because that's the beauty of the stabilizing muscles is they don't need to be really strong. They just need to be strong enough. And if you add too much weight, the primary movers take over and the stabilizing muscles don't work. So the body weight stuff is really nice because it engages those weaker stabilizing muscles and keeps them as strong as possible. And I think Matt kind of summed this one up well, by the way, the last topic, that women's hotness goes up a notch in my mind if they could put on an apron and cook with a bandana and clean my house for me. Yeah, and that's here. It's something that I think it's the one thing at a purple pill debate that's been a useful term. They talked about sexual market value and relationship market value, SMV, RMV. Relationship market value is anything outside sex that makes a man or a woman more attractive. And a girl that can cook, a girl that can clean, a girl who's somewhat self-sufficient there and is willing to help you out because she finds what you bring to the relationship is valuable, it's an awesome thing. It doesn't make her wet and it doesn't make you horny. But once your balls are drained, it's definitely the kind of thing that wants you to keep her around longer than the 8 hours it took to get your nut off. Posterior chain. Good point. It's better than the workouts I used to do. Nothing. Exactly. Here's the thing too. There's always some ideal workout, and this is more categorical. A real workout is this, that, or the other thing. Yeah, well, if you want to work out, doing something is better than doing nothing, which is true. And if you're doing it for any length of time, if you're still 7 years into the game and all you're doing is like 10 push-ups at a time, you're not working out, you're LARPing. But I find it very difficult to believe that somebody can go to the gym for any length of time and not have their workouts improve, if for no other reason than just the sheer boredom of changing things up. Hacker Boy has a question here. How can I send questions? Well, there's a few ways I usually try to deal with questions. Super chat's always priority. I'll cut the topic off and deal with any of that stuff. Second way is Patreon. Weekly, we do question and answer sessions. So you can take as much time as you want to on I put the threads up on Friday, 5 o'clock. And then you have until Friday at 3 p.m. the next week. Doesn't matter what the question is. Doesn't matter how immoral it sounds. Absolute privacy on these ones. I don't spread this stuff out. You can go through anything, maybe the legal issues around divorce, maybe before guys have talked about erectile dysfunction or any kind of topics. There's no limit to it. Since it's private, it's not a monetized public YouTube video. We can swear and cuss. We can talk about disgusting stuff. Doesn't really matter. That's the other one too. And if it's something that you really need the privacy on, there's always the consults, which is ryanstone.com/store. I have them in there. I've been raising the price on them because I'm slowly walking away from those. So I really want to limit how much time I spend on calls with you guys, so if it's that important to you, that's the price I've decided that's worth me taking the time to focus and give your question the proper due rigor that it requires, as well as like some follow-ups. So that way it's not just something you forget about after we talk about. Another little side thing, it's always what makes me laugh. I notice a lot of guys that are running $1,500 to $2,000 conventions now, where the ones complaining about Rich's price or my price or Rolo's price on any of our consulting and that never really bothered me, because yeah, I priced this stuff high because I'm trying to walk away from it now. So that's the price that I found is the perfect price to keep. Because back when I was only like $100 for a consult, I don't know if you guys know this, but I was getting like 7, 8, 9, 10 calls a week. And the problem is, it's very hard to get in a flow state where every day you got 3 calls interrupting you trying to get work done. So I decided that additional revenue and the other stuff there wasn't the best use of time. And so I just kept raising it until it got to be a good one. Good one here. Hey, hi, Born. Oh boy, I see a lot of mentions here, so let me get to it. Ivor has a good point. A girl who's not a bitch helps too on making her attractive. Also true. Highborn has a good point here. I just like changing things up. Nothing beats the 4 basics, no matter how much machines you go through: bench, squat, deadlift, pull up. I agree. Heavy compound or the main primary moving compound lifts, they're never going to go out of style, and they're never going to be bored. Sometimes it's just the classics. Ajun Ajay Pillai, it's always good to see you online, Ryan. It's always good to see you too, Arjun. Arjun or Arjun? Actually, here's one. We're coming up on the 2-hour mark in 20 minutes, so I'm going to end off with this as a topic here. I actually kind of like it. It's not going to be the answer you like, but it's going to be the answer you probably need. Hacker Boy is talking about something that bugs me. Guys in the manosphere focusing so much on a girl who cooks and cleans. Why not just hire a maid? She comes and goes, and you don't need her to keep the house. Yeah, there's no problem with hiring a maid. In fact, for a lot of those women that say I cook and I clean, just because I don't ever have sex with my man, I'm super valuable. You're like, look up the price of a maid and a cook and a chef, and you see exactly what her value is. And you'll find it's not very valuable at all. But that's not really the point. We use cooking, cleaning, staying in shape, and dressing well as metaphors for the idea of somebody bringing value to a relationship outside of the sexual. Right now, it's a good example. One more, please. It's good to see you, man. Always good to see. If you guys didn't know, we had him on the cast like a week or 2 ago. Awesome radio voice. Did not expect that, but he puts things in a very blunt way that I love. So it's not about whether she cooks or she cleans or she does this or the other thing. It's that she has to do something outside of sexual gratification. Because if that's your goal, spinning plates, being a lifetime bachelor is plenty good enough. And like you said, hire a maid, get a chef, learn to cook. Those are easy ones because they're very basic adulting skills. Like if a girl can't cook, she's not an adult yet. She's still a teenager. So I use that. But for you, it could be all kinds of things. Oh, you bought one of those Roombas. Nice. It'll be taken over pretty soon. So maybe for you, a girl who can help you work on your car because you need your car for work. So maybe for you, a mechanic is the value add. A girl who knows her way around an engine, worked on them with dad. Maybe for you, you're on a ranch. And anybody who's been on a ranch will know your girl's a working girl. They don't sit on the ranch with big boobs hanging out, sitting there drinking water and pouring milk on themselves. That's just not how it works. So maybe for you, the value add is the girl that goes out and feeds the animals or moves irrigation pipes or handles the chores around the house. That's a value add for you. But at the same time, what separates a girl, a wife, a girlfriend, a plate, anything from a roommate, an employee, thing that separates them is sex. So that's always the underlying glue that holds us all together. But once that's there, if she wants a bigger part in your life other than sex object, then yeah, this is where this value add stuff comes in. Now, I could obviously mention a girl that goes out and feeds the horses at 4 a.m., but that metaphor is going to be lost on a bunch of people. So we use cooking and cleaning because it doesn't matter who you are, everybody eats things. So that's something you know, it's a good post on this one too. It's another whisper post. I love talking about whisper stuff because he and I see eye to eye on so much. You can't listen to red pill stuff like a spurg. And I'm not saying you are, I'm just saying it as a concept. You can't take everything literally, except for the things you're supposed to take literally. And if you're wondering which ones you take literally and which ones you don't, well, that's kind of the point. I'm not telling you what you should think. I'm just showing you how to think. And you got to imply these things. It's not a categorical imperative, it's hypothetical. So when I say get a woman that cooks, you're supposed to know I don't mean that literally. Like if she doesn't cook, ditch her. That's the same reason as that's a narcissistic symbol. Well, I don't actually want the girl to cook. I just want what comes like the archetype of a guy who wants a girl to cook, the ideal red pill man. Narcissistic fantasy, not very healthy. But if you adopt it and you don't take it literally, you realize it's like Why More Please is saying right now. A girl that adds something to your life that you wouldn't get with her in her current situation. So if she's just a plate, all you want is sex, maybe a little bit of chit chat. That's it. If she wants to be more than that, she has to offer more than that. Most girls don't. Most girls think that I lay down and I give you sex once a week and that's good enough. Most guys think that all I need to do is, bring home a paycheck every 2 weeks and that's good enough. Well, these things aren't good enough. If all you are is a steady paycheck, then you're going to get treated like a plow horse. And if all you are is a warm hole to keep yourself comfortable at night, then yeah, you're basically just a soft prostitute and you're going to be treated as such. Actually, not even. Soft prostitution is pretty good because they understand the girlfriend experience and they know it's more about telling a guy how valuable he is. They at least feed his ego. So even they learn how to cook. They feed you a nice helping plate of ego. So I would say even worse than a soft prostitute. Yeah. And then Jim Bob here, get a woman who doesn't bipolar disorder. Here's the thing. The bipolar or the borderline personalities, every girl has them to some extent. Not many girls have them to a third standard deviation to the point where it becomes a disorder. And for the ones that do, there's a good sizable chunk of them that are only like that because people have enabled it for way too long and then she just develops it. It's the same as when you see movie stars become giant narcissists because everybody fills their head with reaffirmations of whatever they believe. And that's how you get Chris Penn talking about how he went to North Korea and it was a wonderful place, or like the smelling your own fart stuff. It's a delusion. And so it's the one thing I do agree with, was it Andrew or Tristan? I can't remember which take said that, but bipolar disorder doesn't exist. And he's right in that sense. A lot of the behaviors of people, short of ones that are caused by brain damage, of which I don't believe bipolar is, same as NPD isn't, these are all learned behaviors. The strategies, the parenting strategies, the relationship strategies, the sexual strategies that people use to get women are what cause bipolar disorder. I've yet to see any example of, well, it turns out some damage to the hypothalamus is what causes bipolar behavioral traits. I've never seen it. So it's learned. And if it's learned, it can be unlearned. Question is, do you want to waste your time training somebody to go from a 10 out of 10 bipolar to a 7 out of 10 where she can be a normal functioning human? Or do you want to find a girl that's already at a 7 and just ride that wave? It's a single mom argument. Yeah, single moms, maybe her husband was horrible. Maybe she left for good reason, blah, blah, blah. That sounds like an absolutely horrible, perfectly understandable situation that's not my problem nor my responsibility to deal with. It's the same thing with bipolar. Yeah, and Carl brings up a good point too here of basically children. And obviously, we don't really care what men act like because, we're not having sex with men. So men can be like children too. So that's when you get these equative arguments. Well, men are like that too. There's the delayed adolescence and the bros before homes thing. And yeah, I get that. But the day I'm having sex with men is the day I care about what men are like. I only need one data point for man, me. Me and anybody else I'm talking to. So that's 2 data points. Yeah, I don't need that. So I don't care how bad men are in relationships. That's a female problem. They've got the entirety of the mainstream media. They've got their own chance to make as many spaces as they want to solve chick problems. That's not our problem. We have the one space where a guy can go into it, be angry, solve his problems, and end up better because of it. And I am not going to cede that and give that to women just because nobody's talking to them about their problems at that exact moment in this particular space that they were never invited to anyway. On that note, we got 10 minutes left, so let's do full on fan fiction right now. Just you guys. What is it you want to talk about right now? What can we give to the guys who listen to this on Spotify, on Anchor? What can we tell them that you wish I had talked about, but we just aren't? Wine more, please, with the $5 Chuper Chat. Thank you so much. Once this thing pops up into the I actually like, I don't know how you did that, but that's absolutely hilarious. I love that. You're number one. I can't fault you because you're not wrong. Say what you will about this guy. He's a bit of a dick. He's a little flippant, but yeah, he's very smart. And he knows talent when he sees it. Oh, where is that damn thing? It's weird. I think they finally added the color coding to super chats into StreamYard, so I don't need to keep the chat window up from the YouTube window anymore. But I think they finally added it. But it's funny to notice the delay right now between where you had it and where I saw it. But there's neither here nor there. Wide more pleased with the bipolar disorder woman in an emoji. Summed up perfectly. Yeah, that is funny. So yeah, bipolar woman. And I guess since we're talking about bipolar chicks, that seems to be the well that doesn't run dry in the manosphere anyway. When it comes to bipolar, oh, here's a weird thing. That is so weird. All right, that's something new. I can't actually put his thing up in the super chat right now. It didn't pop up in here. Well, that's kind of annoying. That's something I got to bring up a StreamYard. You guys will, I guess you'll see it in yours. I won't be able to put it up on the window here for you to see it, but it turns out if you do those emojis into your super chats, it doesn't parse properly. So I can't paste them here into the StreamYard window. So that's just something to keep in mind. So yeah, bipolar women. Very simple mitigating strategies around this. Take the nurture and you take the nature. Realize that some women have been conditioned to be bipolar to a 10 out of 10 extreme. Let's just say 3 standard deviations is anything that's an 8 out of 10 bipolar chick and heavier. That's the point where you start becoming a psychological disorder. That's where you get the vapid girls that fall in love with you one week and fall out of love with you the next week. Absolute train wrecks. Don't promote them to anything past plate or one night stand. They're really good at that. They're really good at sex. They're very passionate, very energized, very engaging because they, like I said, the emotional high and the emotional low. Enjoy those girls. Have as much fun with them as you want. But if you ever have the need for anything more, like a girl to take on a date, a girl to meet your parents, a girl to hang out with your friends, a girl that you want to see more than just when you want to bust a nut and go, this is like a very simple boundary enforcement. Any bipolar traits you're just not going to put up with. And let's say there's some girls that are kind of like on the cusp of the BPD trait that you don't want to put up with anything more than a couple hours of fun time. If you're either her best option at that time or she wants to act better because she's with you, she's going to start acting right. And she's going to stop doing these behaviors. Not because she truly believes it, but because she wants to be on her best behavior, the honeymoon phase stuff. Anybody who's got a mother-in-law who the daughter completely like complains about constantly that she's so bitchy this, so bitchy that, but then you see them out in public and they are able to keep it on lock, it tells you right there, even the craziest woman is able to keep it under control when she's properly motivated to. So if you're getting a girl that is bipolar, that 8 out of 10 level, but she's keeping that thing on lock when she's around you, that's showing that you're a good option in her books. And so she wants to act her best. And over time, and this is why it's not a vetting thing, it's a boundary strategy. Boundaries and time, always preferable over vetting. Over time, this behavior becomes the norm. if you practice something every day for a year, people are either going to start internalizing the behaviors or they're going to quickly regress if it's just like a mask that they're keeping on. So if a girl is crazy and after a year she acts nice around you, eventually that crazy is going to come out because she can't stop it. Right there, you know your boundaries. She's acted BPD, demote her back to plate, or just remove her completely. But on those rare situations where a girl just needed a guy to set strong boundaries for and starts acting right, over the year, she starts to disassociate with those former thought behaviors that she had. But I don't like that as a strategy because most guys are very ego invested. So when you see this, you're going to assume that she's acting like it. Well, she's acting like a good woman now. She is. I swear she is. And then you make excuses, you move the goalposts. And that's how guys end up with BPD girls. And then once they start accepting the behavior as normal, is when she starts escalating it because he hasn't set boundaries. But the next guy who comes along she's gonna realize that acting like this is always better. And then you get these things, and then you find out that girl that was an absolute train wreck before just needed somebody to tell her no. And then she starts acting right because now that she has healthy boundaries, she has an Overton window of acceptable behaviors to use and she can focus on her strengths. So on that note, we're going to end it on that one. Don't take that as a strategy on how to wife up a bipolar chick, but just take it as an understanding as how being bipolar isn't written in stone. People can act right when they're incentivized to act right. And if they're not incentivized to act right, it's because your boundaries are weak, your standards are low, or your abilities are subpar. But I guarantee if you're the kind of guy who's a girl's best choice with strong, healthy boundaries and the willingness to enforce them, you're going to find far more people are on their best behavior around you than otherwise. And it's a great feedback loop because when people are giving you their best, you're more than likely to give them your best back. So on that note, thank you guys for listening in. We're going to be on in about half an hour with Rule Zero. Should be on Rollo Tomasi's channel. I believe we're talking about we're going to be talking about better life paths other than that TradCon lie. So yeah, you guys want to be monogamous. You want to have good, healthy lives. TradCon Christian feminist types say you should do this and it's clearly not working. So what do you do? What's the alternative? So that's going to be the conversation. We got a bunch of us in different life stages. I think it's going to be very wonderful, but I'll catch you guys then. Again, shout out to Jack, Corey, Wine More Please, Ivar, Conk, all the regulars. You guys know everybody. You know how to find everybody. As always, smash like, hit subscribe if you like your content. If you want to get into more in-depth versions of this stuff on a more frequent basis, sign up on the Patreon. We do weekly Q&As there where we can really get into the weeds on this stuff, and I don't have to filter my language for a family-friendly audience. So, price of a fancy cup of coffee. You're making your own at home anyway, but I'll catch you guys later.